use the text box. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at one time, and I'm not great at it. In the room with us, I have Karen C., the Federal Programs Director, and Tyson Carter, the School Improvement Director. And Chuck just joined us as well, so thank you very much for coming. I need to now share my screen. Tyson's helping me out with this. There we go. And okay, so thank you for joining us. You are here for the Comprehensive School Improvement Graduation Information Webinar. I know in the calls that Tyson and I made with you, it was really pretty brief. So what we would like to do is give you a little bit more information in terms of what it means to be identified and what's going to be happening in the next 3 years. So a few things about this. As I already mentioned, this is being recorded, and once it's done, we'll have it posted on the School Improvement webpage. We will also send an email following this that has just the PowerPoint for your information if you need to share it with a principal maybe who's not here, because I know a lot of you are starting school today or have new teacher orientation or teacher orientation. We also will have some informational documents about the accountability system and the school improvement system that will be included with that. If you have questions for us, please use the chat box and we'll be answering those. If it's a general question, if it's something really specific to your school, if you would email either myself or Tyson Carter after the webinar, we can answer those, or if you want to call us, that works too. And our contact information will be at the end of the webinar. And I know with a lot of you, you already have my information because we've been talking. So let's get started. So to start out with, in terms of the Comprehensive Support and Improvement Graduate School, we're just calling it CSI Grad. You know, we have to have those acronyms and shorten things. Really, what it means is that your school has the 3-year graduation rate that's below 67%. And I know for a lot of you, it's not a surprise. We're tracking it, you're keeping track of it. But in terms of the calculations, any school that has grade 12 or any high school that has grade 12 was identified or included in that. The alternative high schools, the alternative middle schools, obviously because they don't have a graduation rate, aren't included in there. But then we also have a number of schools that have grades K through 12 that were included. So for Idaho, there were 11 high schools that were identified on the list with a low graduation rate and 35 alternative schools, which I know you can, and we'll talk about this, but every school that, or every student that you get as an alternative school to graduate is a win. And so that is one of the things that we're very aware of, and we're keeping that in sight as we look at what we're doing in terms of the school improvement and supports we're providing. That is in the forefront of our minds. So just know that we're with you on that. Couple different things just real quickly in terms of how they were identified. As I already said, it's your 3-year average fell below a 67% graduation rate. And with part of that, you had to have 3 years worth of data. We have some of the alternative schools and a couple new schools that maybe have 2 years worth of graduation rate, or last year was their first year. And we're really looking at the system and trends. It also used the 4-year cohort. So it wasn't just straight, how many kids did you have graduate last year? And for some of the districts, I know that's what you really focus on. And unfortunately, the federal government tells us how we have to calculate graduation rate and what we can use. So that's what we're using there. When we look at the support that's going to be provided for the graduation rate schools, the first thing that I'd like to say is this is new system for us. It's very different than the supports that have been provided by the state for school improvement in the past. And we're really looking at the strengths of the schools. We know you're doing great things. We know that you're helping students. We know that you're more than just your graduation rate. And we want to build on those strengths. So as part of that, we have the State Technical Assistance Team, yet another acronym, the STAT team. And it consists of people here in the department, the different directors and coordinators. We have our content experts involved. So if you're having challenges with part of your graduation rate is dealing with the challenge with graduation is dealing with your English language arts or your math, we have support for that. We're asking for you to put together a building leadership team in combination with your district, and that you will also have be working with a regional capacity builder. Last year, during the 2017-18 school year, we had a STAT pilot, and we had 7 schools that were involved in the process that we're going to be working on with you. And we felt like it was very successful. We had, of the 7 schools that were participating, there were only 2 schools that were identified for additional support this year. So I know it's a small sample size, but it helped us in terms of what are the challenges. We also, as part of this, will be having a regional capacity builder. A number of you have worked with capacity builders. Our hope and belief is that we will have enough that have high school experience and or alternative experience to work with you. So that's part of our goal. As we talked about on the phone call, for those of you who participated in that, we will have a statewide convening. And it says convenings because there will be multiple during the course of the next 3 years. We will also be having regional meetings. And our feeling with that is that in the different regions in the state, you have some different challenges, and we want to be able to focus specifically on those challenges for you or with you. So those are the supports that we'll have available.
We have a question.
Sure, and we have a question. My question team is going to ask.
On the plan, it states that less than 20 is the cutoff for this designation. Is this the total in the school or those that could graduate?
My understanding, the less than 20 is the number that you have in the cohort. So in some cases, if you may have 40 kids, but you only have 10 in your cohort. That's the cutoff. Now, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So hopefully that answered the question. Okay, in terms of additional information about the supports, I already mentioned that it's 3 years of support. Something that'll also be different in the past with our school improvement, you were identified and then you were kind of left on your own to do whatever, and there were focus visits, which some of you may remember. One thing that's really very different is that we will be having ongoing check-ins with each of the schools, and we'll be looking at the school improvement plan that you created and the implementation about that, and then we'll be providing the technical assistance that you need for your school. With that, I did have a question by one of the administrators yesterday about what we're using for the school improvement plan. No, we're not using IndiStar any longer. It is a school improvement plan that was designed here with the department. Some of you may have filled it out if you are a Title I school-wide school. It's basically that plan that you will go back in and add to it as far as school improvement. For those of you who are not Title I schools, this will be a new experience for you, and we'll be working with you on it. One of the other supports that we have is that when you attend the convenings, we will be able to reimburse your travel. We also have some money for help with the regional meetings as well. And then I know a lot of you have already participated in the Superintendent's Network, the Principals Network, and the Principals Mentoring Program. By being designated as a CSI grad school, if you haven't participated in those, you automatically can participate in those, and your travel will be reimbursed. And if you're not a titled school, you get the money for it. So in the past, that was a little bit different. So next, we want to talk about the convening. I mentioned this in the phone calls that we had, that Tyson and I had with you and with your superintendent. On October 30th at BSU in the Hatch Ballroom, we're going to have a meeting from 8 until 3. And just so you know, those of you who are maybe flying from the north or traveling from the east, we have to end at 3 o'clock because our reservation ends at 3 o'clock. So we will be ending then, so you can plan on that. We feel like attendance is critical because we will be talking about the school improvement plan, kind of laying out the groundwork for the next 3 years. As you can see, there are some topics there that we'll be addressing in this initial meeting, talking school culture, building your leadership teams, how to engage stakeholders, and I think that's one especially for the alternative schools and even high schools, can be challenging in terms of how do you get the parents involved and participating. And then we also feel like there are a lot of really good things going on in the high school that you just don't have the opportunities to share with each other. So we'll be talking about best practices and how to share those and some different tools that we have for them. In terms of who to bring, and keep in mind, we know that a lot of you are really small schools. Like when you look down there and say 1 or 2 teachers, there are only 2 teachers. We have that in mind. So ideally, we'd like you to have 4 to 5 people. We also know that the graduation rate is not just one school's accomplishment or challenge. It's a district-wide challenge. So on that, you'll see the superintendent. If you're an alternative school, we'd ask that the alternative school principal attend. If you're the regular high school, of course, the high school teacher or high school principal should attend. And then 1 or 2 teachers. And we have the word influencer there. And the reason for that is we want teachers who maybe the other teachers go to for information or support. I know in the school that I taught in, there were always those people that were like, oh, yeah, I want to be involved in this. I want to be involved in this. And then they take it back to their classroom and it didn't go out any further. And we want those people who will take it further and are really interested in working with us and being a voice of how can we do some things differently. You might also consider bringing a counselor or a social worker. And then, as I already mentioned, if you're an alternative school, because it's a systemic challenge, you might want to bring the high school principal as well. I know that sounds like a lot of people, and we understand that you may have some challenges with that, and we'll work with you on it. So,
Okay, we have a question.
Question?
If I bring myself, the principal, 2 teachers, and counselor, I won't have anyone left in the building. Will we be able to use CSI funds to pay for substitutes, including an admin sub?
Okay, great question. And one of the things with this is if you are a CSI grad rate school, there are no flow-through funds for this. Now, and I know some of the people that are on the line are also identified as the CSI underperforming or CSI up schools. And so in that case, you would be able to use the funds for subs. Correct, Karen?
Coming to
To
the
the
September
September-
10th and 11th,
Can they-
the CSI up leadership teams would receive funds. Any staff coming to the October 30th grad convening will get reimbursed travel expenses, but at this time we don't have money for subs.
But if they're and maybe whoever asked that question, if you would send it to me, then Karen and I can talk about it because I have a couple thoughts. So okay.
So
Yeah.
another question, can superintendents send a designee such as a curriculum director or assistant superintendent?
That would be appropriate. The assistant superintendent probably more so, nothing wrong with the curriculum director, but we want somebody who's got that big picture and can influence or work with the other schools. So another one?
Can we get a roster for the 3 years of cohorts that were used by the SE for designation? That sounds like something that Carlin would probably be able to,
Yeah.
after they get done after 3 o'clock, might be something
Yeah.
after when we send out all the documents,
Yeah.
it might be something to clean that up.
So the roster of all of the schools that were used for the designees,
3
sorry.
years of cohorts that were used by the SDE for designation.
Oh, gotcha. So basically you want your data for who was included in that. That would be something that should be available from Carlin Laraway. And at the last slide, there's links to their information. So that would be the best person because the accountability team
So
contacted
they
us.
have to repeat that. So I'm going to repeat
Okay.
the question, and can you answer it one more time? The question was, can we get a roster for the 3 years of cohorts that were used by the SDE for designation?
Okay, so can we get a roster of the 3 years of cohorts that were used for the designation? That would be a question for Carlin Laraway. You should be able to, but you also should have that in the grad rate appeals application that you've been using. So yes, check with Carlin. So briefly, that's what we have. So what other questions do you have? What's on your mind? What do you need to know about? Other questions? Tyson?
Yes, I have a question. When this information goes public later this afternoon, if I'm a parent and I find out that my child is attending a school that is identified as a CSI grad school, what should the school be able to tell me?
Okay, so how to talk with your parents is basically what the question is about the graduation identification, the CSI graduation identification. I think one of the things for me that I would talk about is the strengths of the school. And certainly you, for the alternative schools, you all have the data on the number of students that are graduating as part of the 5th year cohort or the 6th year cohort. So I think that's reasonable to share with them and let them know that the school is more than just the graduation rate number, that you're helping your students with the skills that they need to be successful in life, and you're helping them take the college level classes or partner with the community colleges in your area. So I think those are things that are worth talking to them about. Just because you have a low graduation rate doesn't mean that you're a poor school. It's just one indicator that we have to use for school identification. And maybe I'm too much of a Pollyanna to say that, you know, that they're going to buy into that. But I would hope that they would see that there are other reasons that they're sending their children to your school and have made that choice. So
Okay, we have quite a few more questions. So next one is, did I miss the allocation amounts?
Oh, yes. Okay, so the question is, did I miss the allocation amounts? Yes, you did miss the allocation amounts because there are no allocation amounts. For the CSI graduation rate schools, there is no flow-through money for the schools. It is only for, the only funds that are available are reimbursement for your travel to the different state activities.
Okay. Next one is, next question is, how does IMEN fit into the improvement process? We have been part of IMEN for the past several years.
So, great question. I know a lot of the alternative schools are participating with the Idaho Mastery Education Network. That's what IMEN stands for. It's one of the opportunities that's provided by the state. It is, for lack of better words, it's one more thing that your school can participate in or is participating in, and hopefully as you participate in that, the results will show or help improve your graduation rate. If you get money with that, great. Right now they're not accepting any additional schools in it, but our hope is that the mastery education will help provide more meaningful opportunities for your students and improve their results. They're not necessarily integrally linked, but it's just something else for you to participate in.
At the end of the 3 years, what happens if the school is not at or above the 67% grad rate requirement?
Oh, good question. Karen, do you have an answer for that?
Well, the school would be identified again, and in the Idaho's Consolidated State Plan, there is a section, a requirement to define more rigorous intervention. And to be honest with you, that might be, that might go to the state board or the executive team here, and also to the state board. We haven't quite got there yet, so we're not sure what that looks like, but under ESSA, more rigorous intervention is required.
Good. Next question is, why aren't there funds to support our improvement efforts?
Great question. In terms of why aren't there funds to support the improvement efforts? Mainly because there are only so many funds available, and the first priority is for the schools that are underperforming and using the funds for that. And that's the requirement with Title I and ESSA, is to support those schools first.
They will also, we are using some state funds to provide a capacity builder, which is kind of a leadership coach to the school. Other funds are also being directed as for reimbursement for leadership to attend the Idaho Superintendent's Network, the Idaho Principals Network, and if they are joining the mentoring program we have, funds will be used to reimburse for those programs. And I don't know if there's any other. So those are where those funds are going.
Those are the main ones.
So other than flow through funds, we're using state funds to be able to help reimburse those expenses.
So each grad school will get a CP or access to.
Yeah, so as Karen was just saying, each of the low grad schools will have access to the capacity builder. You can participate in the IPN, ISN, IPMP, and those. And so while you're not getting funds to do what you want with it, we are providing other supports for you.
Next question. For alternative schools, why did you use the 4-year cohort when students usually don't attend alternative schools when they are on track to graduate in 4 years?
Okay, the question in terms of why did we use the 4-year cohort for the calculation, alternative or otherwise, because the feds require us to use the 4-year cohort. We didn't have an option there. When you look at, when we release the new school report card, it will include the 4-year cohort as well as the 5-year cohort where it's available. So.
Good. Next question is, will IPN be starting over at the beginning? Right now we are in talks with the presenters for IPN and how that's going to look going forward in October. So there will be a few changes, yes.
So yeah, for those of you that have already participated for multiple years, there will be some changes and some potential to learn new things and work with different people.
Next question is, how many statewide meetings are there in a year?
Right now, we have the one planned for October 30th, and we are looking at here in Boise, and then we're also looking at including one in the spring tied to the Idaho Prevention Conference. We don't have the details worked out for that for certain.
Okay. Another question, does the SDE have flyers to provide parents about the new accountability framework?
Oh, great question. In terms of providing flyers or information for parents or otherwise, we do have a couple different, for lack of better words, flyers, handouts, one-page documents that we will be sending. I'll send an email later today to you that includes information about the accountability system and also about the comprehensive support and improvement identification.
Next one says, conversely, can you be removed from the list if you boost your 3-year average to 67% next year?
Our plan says that a CSI grad school may exit from that status if the school's average graduation rate over the previous 3 years exceeds 67%, or the school's graduation rate for 2 consecutive years exceeds 67%.
So yes, you can be removed. You don't have to participate for 3 years and I know there are some schools that were really close, at that 65% graduation rate average. So if you do move up, if you get above that 67% over the 3 years, or if it's 2 consecutive years, we will remove you. So yeah.
Okay. Next question is, do we understand that 75% of these identified schools are alternative high schools? Am I the only one that sees a correlation here?
We're all looking at each other and we all have smiles on your faces because yes, you do understand that correctly, and yes, there is a correlation. And when this was brought up at one of the meetings with the U.S. Department of Education, they said, well, yes, we understand that, and that was about it. They really didn't have a good response for us. So yeah, you're right.
We've kind of discussed this one a little bit. What are the implications for our alternative schools when being identified a second or third time? Will there be communication from the State Department for understanding the disparity that will likely always be there as we serve our students with barriers?
I think the main thing that I would say is we recognize the challenges that you have and the positive things that you're doing. The fact that you are working with these students that, as I said before, otherwise probably wouldn't graduate. And so we're going to try and help strengthen what you're doing with those students and look at the fact that you are doing good things and celebrate what you are doing well. Ideally, we know that you may not get to the point where you're in the top graduation rates in the state, but improving it is one of the keys. So looking at some of the growth that's there.
Let's see here, sorry. It seems like this is a broken system of data collection for alternative schools. Is the Idaho SDE doing anything to advocate for alternative schools to change this?
We are and have been. We've been talking with the state accountability committee that's part of the board, and that's part of the reason. If you recall, in the past, we had a system where identification for the school improvement that was based on your academic data was basically we over-identified alternative schools as the schools needing support. And by making the change so that alternative schools are in their own category, that's helped with that over-identification. Unfortunately, with the graduation rate, because of the way the feds have written it, there's really not, other than continuing to advocate with the U.S. Department of Education, there's not a lot that we can do. But we do keep bringing it up when we have meetings with them and saying, here's what's happened. And when we have meetings this fall, we'll go back and talk with them and say, here's what happened with our graduation rate list. Again, we've got all of these alternative schools who are helping kids that have dropped out, and now we're identifying them. So help us help them.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked here quite a bit about is, especially with the alternative schools, is all the students who are graduating normally or probably would not be graduating if the alternative school wasn't there. So instead of focusing on all the students that are not graduating, we really try hard to focus on those students that are, because that's a lot of students that normally wouldn't. So we do see that and we do advocate for that. I think there's just a couple more questions here. Let's see here. Does academic growth play any role in helping to being removed from being identified? So in this case, for this particular webinar, if you're on here because you're a CSI grad school, no, academic growth doesn't play any role in it. This is strictly what we're talking about are those schools that were identified for support purely based on your graduation rate. Next question is, I am very concerned about how this message will be received by our alternative school teachers. How will the SDE help us, to send the positive messages to our teachers who work with our most at-risk kids? It is a tough job, and this will be a morale hit.
So I think part of that is just the messaging from the start. You know, the fact that we're letting you know, and we let the superintendent know on Friday and Monday before the lists go out to the press. So if you're on this call and you have time to contact your teachers before about 3 o'clock this afternoon, I would encourage you to do that, to let them know, hey, yeah, we're on this list, but it's for one indicator of our school, one thing. And to me, it shouldn't be a surprise. I think your teachers are probably well aware of the graduation rates. And it's not that we're saying that you're a bad school or a failing school. You're doing great things. And we recognize that. So I think anything that you can do to talk with them and say, you know, it's just our graduation rate. We're supporting these kids. We are graduating kids. I know that a lot of you have a number of, you can tell me the stories, and you've shared the stories of all of the different kids that you have graduated that wouldn't have otherwise. So talking with them about that.
Another question is, are our legislators taking these issues to the feds as discussion points? Somebody else kind of put along with that, said we all need to talk with our legislators about this and ask them to advocate for our schools with alternative populations.
I think that's a great suggestion. You know, talk with your legislators, especially the ones that are going to Washington, D.C., and share with them. This is a concern that we have with the accountability plan, and that it really doesn't recognize the kind of school that we are. So anything that you can do to advocate for yourself and get people in your school to see what a great school that you are, that helps.
Okay, that is all we have for questions.
Okay.
I'm not sure anybody has anything else. So.
That's all we have for questions. If you have one, here is our contact information. So as you can see, I'm at the top of the list with the alternative schools, and I am the lead for the work that we're going to be doing with the comprehensive support and improvement grad schools. If you have general school improvement questions or questions about ISN, IPN, IPMP, those are things that you can send to Tyson. If you have questions about your data or what was used to put you on the list for the CSI grad schools, those would go to Carlin. We have travel reimbursement. There will be more about that later, but Lisa English is the person with that. And if anything else, or if you just have general questions about the plan, or you're concerned about what's happening, call Karen or email Karen. She's when all else fails, we go to her. So any other questions?
No, there was just a thank you. So thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it. And Rose, appreciate your comment. And just remember, this is recorded, and we'll be putting this on the website. So if you have people that want to come back and take a look at it, it will be there.
Great. Thanks everybody for participating with us. Be looking for an email from me with the different one-page documents and things that we'll be sharing there. And we're really excited. This kind of sounds sick, but we have nothing better to get excited about. We're excited about working with you and learning more about your schools and helping you. And that will be helpful for us to better advocate for you as well. So have a good day and have a great start of the school year.